Hey, Vicki and I are here today to talk to you about how to deal with toddler tantrums.
Yep.
This is one that we've taken on before. It's pretty common.
Yeah, it's part of being a toddler, I think, is throwing tantrums.
Right, which is probably an important acknowledgement right up front. This is developmentally typical.
And it's age appropriate.
Right, even though we don't like it,
Right.
it's the way that it should be. Honestly, though, that's pretty important because one of the most important things you can do is make sure that you don't get tipped over by this.
And so if you're expecting it, it's easier not to be tipped over.
Exactly. Keep your cool. That's easier said than done.
Definitely.
But probably one of the most important starting places because your kids, especially toddlers, don't have the ability to regulate their own emotions very well. So they become little emotional mirrors.
Right.
Have you noticed this, that when you're having one of those days, when you're just...
They're in the worst, they have the most naughty behavior when you're in one of your moods.
That's when they're climbing the
Right.
walls and driving
Right.
you nuts.
So it's so important to stay calm. And, you know, when you can expect that it's coming, it's so much easier to stay calm. When you're
It is.
you're not tipped over because you knew it was coming. So that's our first little tip.
Vicki, we experience this with our little kids. I know everybody does. At some point, they just give in. Because it's so much easier. You got this tantrum going on, all this noise, and you just give them what they're wanting, and then they're quiet.
Just to make it stop as soon as possible.
So tempting to do that, but it's really important to refrain.
Right. At least realize that if you do that, you're actually strengthening the tantrum, the power that the tantrum has, and probably guaranteeing it's going to happen again.
It's kind of like paying them off.
Yeah.
They're doing it for some particular reason. Quick example, you're at the grocery store. The child really, really wants that toy or that piece of candy.
Right.
And what do you say as a mom?
No.
No, not going to happen, right? Child happy with that or not so much?
Right. Not so much. And
Right.
they just start to scream or cry or throw a fit or...
So all of this noise that's going on is for the purpose of what? Getting you to change your behavior. It's like kids are born with this sense of how to operate behavioral psychology.
against us, right?
Well, it's called negative reinforcement.
Right. Yeah.
It's a payoff. So if you give the child what they want, they take away the thing you don't want.
Which is the screaming, the fit,
The tantrum. Exactly. And in taking it away, they make it more likely that you are going to give them what they want again in the future.
Right.
And that's the exact opposite of what we're trying to teach them.
Right.
So you have to back off, not give them what they want. Okay, there's a catch here. If you do this well, it's going to get worse.
That's the most amazing thing. Why would it be getting worse? But
Worse, not better,
Right.
yet.
Right.
This is called an extinction curve because the kid is thinking, wait, this always used to work with mom.
right.
I must be losing my cool.
You know, it's so important to be ready for this because I've worked with so many parents that there's been a behavior and you're ready to change the behavior, right? As soon as you decide to change the behavior, expect the storm because it will get worse, but it will only be worse for a time. And then
Right.
you finally get your payoff. You're going to be able to maybe go to the grocery store without them throwing a fit for an item.
So at first they're thinking, oh, I'm losing my cool, I'm losing my touch, I don't have that.
The child is
factor
thinking
anymore.
that.
Right. I got to turn up the volume. And so that's why it gets worse. They
Yeah.
crank it up. Now, if you cave in at that point, you've just made it worse. You've just
Yeah.
intensified the nature of the problem.
Yeah.
But if you will outlast them, and you have to last just a little longer than you want, but not as long as you fear.
Right.
It's that extinction curve will drop off again because then they'll be like, oh, this isn't working. And then they'll try to use some other strategy, hopefully one of the appropriate ones that you've been teaching them.
Right.
You don't get to control whether your child's going to throw a tantrum or not. Think about it. If you were in control, it wouldn't be happening.
There would never be one, right?
Right. So it's not up to you. I've had moms sometimes say, so am I just supposed to let my child have the tantrum? What do you mean let them?
You're not letting them. They're going to do it.
Like
right?
it's up to you anyway. So because we can't control it or decide that it's going to happen or not happen, instead of insisting that your child stop, what if you were to just put your energies toward containing it somehow?
That's such an interesting idea. Explain more about how you would contain a tantrum.
So an example that came to my mind, let's say that you're in the car and you're about to go into an appointment or into the store or something, and the child starts throwing a tantrum.
Right.
You can simply remain in the car. Now you might be thinking, but I've got the appointment, right? Kids aren't going to pick the most convenient times to throw their tantrums.
Right.
In fact, it works better for them if they don't.
If it's not convenient, because you're likely to give in. So.
Yes, that gives them more leverage. But you can contain it by staying there in the car, and you can say, sweetie, we're going to stay here until you're done.
Yeah,
And
contain
then you
it.
smile.
And,
right?
I was thinking when there's like really predictable tantrums, there are some kids that have really predictable times they're going to throw a tantrum. You might need to enlist someone else to help you contain that tantrum. I remember we were talking about a friend whose child always threw a fit when it was time to go to the store, didn't want to put on the car seat.
Oh.
Didn't want to get in the car seat, didn't want to do up the buckles, throwing a big, huge tantrum. So she had arranged with her friend that when this happens, it's not the if, because you kind of know it's predictable, right?
It's coming.
When it happens, I'm going to call you, and the child will then get to stay home with you. And it's not to be a fun party time, but they're going to stay with you. So here you've contained it. They threw the tantrum, they wanted whatever they wanted, but you're going to just, because you can't say to the child, oh, you just have to stay home then, if they really can't stay home.
Right,
and
a toddler, you're going to leave a toddler home alone.
And so she contained it by enlisting some help. So just think that through. When it's predictable, and it happens over and over again, think about who you can enlist to help you contain the tantrum.
Contain it. I can't stop it. I'm going to contain it.
Right. And then you got to remember, you got to weather the storm that's coming.
Oh, I love that analogy, Vicki. We just had a storm here yesterday at our home.
Buckets of rain.
The clouds gathered, right? You know it's coming. Things are starting to get dark. Do you see how this relates to a tantrum? And then the storm. Boom!
Right.
But guess what? That storm passed.
Right. I was actually out to dinner with some friends at the time, and we watched it just come down, and we were done with dinner and we were going to go. But instead, we just sat and watched the storm for another 10 minutes, and then it was over, and we went to our car.
Storms are good analogies for tantrums because you can't go outside and just, raise your fists to the heavens and say, don't start with me, or knock it off right now.
Well, you can. But it doesn't do much good.
You look pretty ridiculous.
That's kind of how it is with tantrums. Sometimes you can yell at the kids, stop crying, but it really doesn't do much good.
Well, you start looking like a lunatic, and it doesn't seem to stop the storm.
Right.
But all storms pass, all of them. Every storm. We visited northern Florida last year, where a devastating hurricane had come through. The storm was past. It had gone. There was still some damage, and that's probably a whole other conversation. But every storm passes, so weather the storm.
Right.
Now remember, our children are always learning, and especially the little ones. So we're talking specifically about toddlers, and they're going through a very intense period of psychological and emotional development.
Right, and social development. That's a lot what this is about.
Yes. And they are influenced heavily by their primary caregivers. That's you.
Right. And they are observers. I don't know if you've noticed this, but boy, those toddlers observe everything.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is model for them calm behavior. So you might say to your child, in a calm voice, remember that's the key.
In a calm voice.
I will talk to you when you're done screaming.
Or, I'll talk to you about this when you can talk to me like I'm talking to you. Whatever's appropriate for your child's age and stage of development, you're modeling that behavior for them. They will learn more from what you do and what you show them than from what you say. Thank you for being here and for being the conscious, positive parent that you are. Vicki and I have created a community and support and resources for parents like you. If you haven't checked out the Parenting Power Up, would you do that right now? parentingpowerup.com. You can connect to it right here in the links as well.
In the street alone. Her head was down, face locked onto the phone.